I'm Ben Sebastian, here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins for today's Written on the Edge Spotlight. Today we will be diving deeply into why being intelligent is hated by society.
A very, very interesting topic, and one that I think is far more timely than people will give it its due.
Hmm.
I'm going to start by asking Vance a question. It's something that I remember happening back in the day, but I don't know what year were you born?
Like 1502, kind of how I feel.
No, I know, but I mean, you were the latter half of our latter part of Gen X period, right?
72.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, you were mid. So, well, you might not have been old enough. But in the 70s, there was a study that was done by a teacher, an educator, and it was the blue eye, brown eye. Do you remember that situation?
I
Okay.
I don't, I'm sorry.
There was a teacher. I remember it because it was something that was highlighted like on PBS or something. And it was kind of a big, shocking revelation. It was a teacher who had, I think it was third or fourth graders, I think. So the kids were old enough to start to really get into social dynamics, kind of thing. So she
Hmm.
had divided her class into those with brown eyes and those who didn't have brown eyes. And she wanted to see how the two populations would work. It's basically the Dr. Seuss, the star bellies and the non-star bellies kind of thing. It's
Right,
that kind of
right.
scenario.
The Sneetches.
And what she found out was that the brown-eyed kids dominated all the light-eyed kids in almost every aspect. And it was really shocking thing in the 70s to have that come out and people to suddenly realize these kids who are not indoctrinated, but we all know that society indoctrinates from birth, but they literally in the beginning of their social development, they had already established this tribalism that
Hmm.
was going on. And so her whole approach to education has been a drive to really drill down and re-educate the populace into the stupid things that we do, and we don't even question why we're doing it. So I'm going to do, I'm going to start out by quoting my Aunt Cookie, um, who gave me this wonderful, wonderful intro. Ladies and gentlemen, hobos and tramps, cross-eyed spiders and uncles and aunts, I stand before you, I sit behind you, I tell you a story you know nothing about. We are going to go into this woman and her education, and I'm only going to play a portion of it, but I think it's really important and it completely distills how we as a society have valued stupidity and compartmentalization, and we've used it to our own detriment. So here is the educator who ran that um, experiment in the 70s. Her name is Jane Elliott. She's a very elderly woman, but being in like approaching 90, she has got a firecracker brain. And you will see that on cue here. So I just want to play a little bit of this for our viewers and for Vance, so he can see her in action. And I think when they talk about the wisdom of elders, child, this girl has got it in spades. So here we go.
Do something. I want every person in this room who considers himself or herself a member of the white race to stand. Right now. Right now. Every person in this room who considers himself or herself a member of the white race. Now, remain standing. Now, remain standing. Now, will every person in this room who considers himself or herself a member of the black race please stand? Up, 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 up. And remain standing. Now, the brown race. Anybody who considers himself or herself a member of the brown race. Now, the yellow race. Now, the red race. Now, look around you, people. Practically everybody's standing. Now, will every person in this room who considers himself or herself a member of the human race please sit down? Now, people, you are all members of the same race, the human race, which started with black women between 300,000. Don't interrupt me. I don't have much time. Now, white
She's a
folks, you don't
firecracker.
like it, but all you are is faded blacks. That's the way it is. Every one of you, if you trace your DNA back far enough, you're going to find that some of your DNA came from Africa. Because we all have the same ancestor back there, every single one of us. And those of you who think you don't have are obviously from outer space. Now, that means that every one of us is a 30th to 50th cousin to every other person in this room. So I want you to turn to the person on your left or your right or behind or in front of you, stick out your hand and say, "Hi, cousin." Now, will
She's
every
a
person in
firecracker.
this room who considers himself or herself a biracial person stand? Don't you stand. Don't you stand. People, we have to get rid of the language of racism. Words are important, people. Words matter. You have to be careful how you use them, and you have to refuse to tolerate these ugly words being used in your presence. Now, make no mistake about this. I've been described as a teacher. I'm not a teacher. Teachers dispense facts and figures so that they can get their kids ready for the end of school testing. I've been called a trainer. You train dogs and horses and members of the military. I don't train people. I'm an educator. The word educator, I don't want to be interrupted anymore. People, the word educator comes from the root duck deuce, which means lead, the prefix e, which means out, the suffix ate, which means the act of, and the suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. Now, in this country, we spend a lot of money on what we call education. It isn't education, it's indoctrination. It takes us 13 years to teach a student, to educate a student, to be ignorant about race, and to support ideas that make this a better country. This is a word for this in my vernacular, since I was raised on a farm, is bullshit. Don't write that down. People, I recognize it when I see it, and that's what we're living with right now. If we were in post-racial society, Donosaurus T. Rump would not be in the White House. He got elected because white people resented having a black man in the White House for 8 years. It's time to face the truth and say the truth, and it's time for women, and all people of color to stop playing defense and defending what they are and go on the offense. We were here first. We don't have to apologize for what we are or for what we do. Now, I know some of you are thinking, boy, is she a bitch? Yes, I am.
He's also a
How many of
Midwesterner.
you women have been called the B word? Look around, fellas. Everybody's heard it. Come up with a new word. Now, how many of you are called that by a male? All right, people, for me, the B word is an acronym for being in total control, honey. And when women are seen in control, the men around them call them the B word. You need to say, "You're right, darling, I am." And then you need to whip out your little Lorena Bobbitt fruit knife. Now don't do that, because some of these boys are scared to death. Now some of you are thinking, she doesn't like men. Oh God, do I like men. Oh, Find me one, please, please. Some of my best friends are men. I was married to one for 59 years. When I married him, he looked just like Marlon Brando. He really did. When he died, he looked like Telly Savalas. Lived with me for 59 years. Now, what's your next question?
So I'll end it there. But the idea is we have been dumbed down
Hmm.
for eons and eons. Probably since the Greco-Roman and even before that. Society's main driving force is to keep the populace dumb, because when it's dumb, you can control it, manipulate it, inure it to other oppressions, and people don't really see it for what it is. The whole reason Vance and I are bringing this to y'all is because I ran across a video on the philosopher Schopenhauer, and I found his story to be incredibly fascinating because he was in a situation where he was an educator, much like Jane there, and he had a class that he was trying to teach that was very poorly attended, yet a populist kind of philosopher was down the hall from him, and his class was overwhelmed with students. But rather than have a knee-jerk reaction and just dismiss it because he thought this other guy was a complete fraud, he wanted to study why this was going on.
Have you sat down and wondered why being smart sometimes feels like a curse? Why do the most intelligent people often end up alone, while those of average minds seem to thrive socially? Arthur Schopenhauer, one of history's most brutally honest philosophers, cracked this riddle nearly 200 years ago. He established that intelligence itself becomes a mirror, reflecting back others' limitations, and people never forgive you for showing them what they don't want to see. Most people think it's just coincidence that brilliant minds often live lonely lives, or maybe smart people are just socially awkward. But Schopenhauer saw something deeper, a pattern that plays out in every society, in every age. He noticed something interesting. When you put an intelligent person in a room, they don't have to say a word to make others uncomfortable. Their mere presence becomes like holding up a mirror to everyone else's limitations. And nobody likes looking in a mirror that shows them things they'd rather ignore. Think about it. We celebrate all kinds of superiority. Money, people love rich folks. Good looks, we can't get enough. Even physical strength gets admiration. But superior intelligence? That's different. It stirs up a special kind of resentment, a quiet hatred that most people won't even admit to themselves. So how did Schopenhauer come to understand this dark side of human nature, and why do his insights matter more than ever in today's world? Born in 1788 in Germany, Schopenhauer wasn't just some ivory tower philosopher theorizing about life. He lived through the exact dynamics he wrote about. As a young lecturer, he scheduled his university classes at the same time as the famous philosopher Hegel, who he saw as a complete fraud. While Hegel's lectures packed the halls, Schopenhauer's sat empty. But instead of just getting bitter, he got curious. Why did people flock to comforting nonsense while avoiding harder truths? He started watching how people behaved around intelligence, not just in universities but everywhere. He saw the same pattern over and over. The smarter someone was, the more others found subtle ways to exclude them. Not because they were rude or arrogant, just because their intelligence itself made others feel smaller. Living modestly off his inheritance, Schopenhauer had the freedom to observe society without needing its approval. He watched how people gathered in groups, who they welcomed, who they pushed away. The patterns he saw weren't pretty, but they were consistent. Modern science has caught up with what Schopenhauer observed through pure insight. Recent studies in social psychology reveal fascinating evidence about why intelligent people face social rejection. Brain imaging research shows something remarkable. When people feel intellectually inferior, it activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. It's not just a figure of speech when people say intelligence hurts their ego. It literally triggers pain responses in the brain. A 2021 study found that exposure to superior intelligence activates our threat detection systems. The amygdala, our brain's alarm system, lights up when we encounter someone significantly smarter than us. It's the same response we have to physical threats, explaining why the reaction feels so instinctive and hard to control. Researchers at Stanford discovered something even more interesting. This response is stronger in group settings. When people are alone with someone more intelligent, the threat response is minimal. But add more people to the room, and it spikes dramatically. Our brains seem wired to protect our social status more than our private self-image. But this hardwired response isn't the whole story. What Schopenhauer discovered about how we consciously process this unconscious reaction reveals something even more profound. And what he discovered about how intelligence affects human behavior would explain something that had puzzled people for centuries. Here's what Schopenhauer discovered. People don't just randomly dislike intelligence. It triggers something deep in human psychology, something most of us won't even admit to ourselves. When someone smarter enters a conversation, everyone else unconsciously measures themselves against them, not because they want to, but because they can't help it. It's like putting a professional athlete in a casual pickup game. Suddenly, everyone feels their limitations. Schopenhauer noticed how people react to this feeling. They don't say, "Wow, this person makes me feel dumb." Instead, they assume the intelligent person looks down on them. Even if the smart person hasn't said a word about their intelligence, others feel judged just by their presence. And here's the really fascinating part. The smarter someone is, the less they might actually judge others. But that doesn't matter. People react to the mirror intelligence holds up, not to any real judgment. It's why you'll often hear things like, "They think they're so smart," about people who've never claimed to be smart at all. But why do we react this way to intelligence when other kinds of superiority don't bother us nearly as much?
And in the course of his really examining and taking a hard look at how this man's populism was driving his success, Schopenhauer unveiled or revealed to himself and now to all of us that what society values is comfort. And in order for comfort to be a factor in everyone's life, we all have to conform. We all have to dumb down and be confident that no one is better than us in the room. And what I found really interesting about it was, one, that Schopenhauer was bright enough to take his own ego out of the mix and to really look at what was going on, and had the forthright to actually write it down and to make it something that we in this day and age can look back to his time and say, wow, this guy was really on the money with it. Now, my husband's father was a superintendent of a school system in Ohio. And he remembers in the 50s, his father coming home really agitated and upset because there was a malfeasance and an insertion of politics into the educational system. And his father made a comment, and I'm kind of paraphrasing and short storying this whole thing because I want to get to Vance's thoughts on Schopenhauer. But he made a comment that stuck in my husband's head that the Republicans are trying to dumb down everything. And this was in the 50s. So when I said in another video that we have here that the Republicans are playing a very, very long game and the Democrats need to fucking wake up and pay attention to what's really going on, they need to acknowledge that this comfort in not having anyone be better than them in the room, and that we all are conforming to that level of ignorance and stupidity, as Jane just commented on, that it is what is helping this oppression occur. So as we emotively react to it and get really angry about everything that Dinosaurus T. Rump, as Jane said, is trying to do and is throwing our way as distraction, as smokescreen. Because let's face it, people, the only reason he's in office is because he was trying to stay out of prison. He knew shit was coming down the pipe, was going to slam his ass in jail. So that's why he ran. He has no interest in governance. He really doesn't. His latest round of bullshit stuff that he's thrown on everybody, the freezing of the federal aid, all of that was done while he was golfing at Mar-a-Lago. So
Can I make a slight adjustment to what you just said?
Mm.
He has no interest in serving the American people. He wants to govern because he can then turn the system to his advantage.
Right.
He does not want to serve the American people.
Right. Well, yeah, and what he's doing is not governance. It's just literally robber baroning the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, and here's where I kind of get caught up in it. It plays into my whole position that the greatest sin we're doing is committing is apathy, because we refuse to put in the effort to do as Jane said and really look at why you do what you do and to understand what's been indoctrinated into you from the time you were very, very little to where we are now. And this has been a recurring theme, an ongoing progressive program to actually get us to be complacent in our own oppression. And that goes across, as Jane said, we're all the human race. We're all brown people. Some of us are just lighter shades of brown than others, and some are darker. That we're all the same race. And I think people confuse race with culture a little too much. And that's where we run into the problem. But we don't rationalize and we don't reason, not rationalize, we don't reason why we have the beliefs or the positions that we do, and don't want to take the time to question ourselves of whether what we're standing on as the be all end all may be wrong. You know, one of the things I always try to say to people, I am very opinionated, I'm very passionate. I will get out in front and say anything that is on my little pea brain, that two brain cells are sparking off and I need to say it. But I also am willing to admit when I'm wrong, and I'm willing to admit that I want to learn and do better. So I go into it. I never say, "Oh, I believe blah 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 blah." I never say that. I always say, "I think," or "I know," or "I've experienced." I do not ever say believe. Faith runs in the absence of education and of knowledge. So, and of fact. So if you say, I believe, you are leaving it to faith, and faith operates in the absence of knowledge. So when people use these phrases, pay attention to when they slip that word in. That means they're not doing the work. You know that, and it's just a signal. It's just an offhanded signal. Now that I've let that cat out of the bag, people are going to try adjusting and saying, oh, I'm going to say think from now on. It's all the other words that surround that word that makes you know whether or not they've actually have been thinking about it. Anyways, Vance, why don't you chime in with your thoughts on both Jane and this whole Schopenhauer intelligence versus stupidity?
All right. I'm going to back up two, three, four of your points. It's sometimes hard to keep track to where you were talking about how we reason our intellect away. And Schopenhauer did a really good look at the fact that in terms of social comparisons, there's beauty, there's physical strength, and there's intellect. And of the three, intellect is the intangible. You can't see it, you can't compare yourself to it, it's invisible. And what he noticed is that you may be in a room with a really beautiful person and you may objectify them, but you can see their beauty and you can categorize it, you can compare yourself to it, and you can find your standing, and then you can put it down if you feel bad about yourself, which happens way too often. Same thing applies to physical strength. But when you're in a room with an intelligent person, you can't compare yourself to them. It's impossible. It's an intangible element of our human nature. So he realized that that led to people's feelings of self-devaluement, sometimes depression, all sorts of negative feelings, and people didn't like to be in rooms with intelligent people. And then people needed to take down intelligent people. People needed to sort of band together against the intelligent person. And this has all not changed in hundreds of years of society. When you watch politics today, ask yourself, is the person speaking intelligent or are they afraid of intelligence? And sometimes that one question will give you a whole new insight into the speaker slash ranter slash presenter slash YouTuber slash TikToker. Are they intelligent or are they afraid of intelligence? To Jane's
And that
point,
takes
which I,
strong listening skills, which a lot of
it
people don't have.
it absolutely does. And it, from my own personal observations, I've noticed that most people don't want to listen because they have not stopped thinking about what they are going to say next or what they are going to say about the thing they're watching. If you don't stop to listen, what you're about to say has nothing to do with what's just been said. And I hate to say it, but that makes you appear unintelligent because you are unengaged and you did not actually follow the thread of the conversation because the point that was up here spinning was so overwhelming you didn't hear what else was said. Slow down and listen. As to Jane's point, the one that stood out to me most is our use of language. And I don't want to shock anyone, I have a degree in linguistics with a minor sub-study in sociology. So, how we use language, how language shapes us, how we shape language is what I studied in college. And she is 100% on the money there. We need to change our language, to change our perceptions of each other, and we need to change it to be accurate. Because she's right. We are a human race. That's what race means. Full stop. So I'm going to have to watch her clip again and again because she said so much. Um,
She's a firecracker. She's
she
like the
really
Ruth
is.
Gordon of educators.
She is. But and most people don't know this, and that's fair because most people haven't studied it, but your language does shape your reality. So
Mm,
listen to the language of the people that you're following on the apps that you use. Are they using language that is open and inclusive of the fact that we all have to share this planet? End of story.
we're
Or
all
is it
connected by being
we're
on
all
this planet.
connected? Or is it language that involves us against them? One of my biggest revelations about the last election was that the election was turned into a football game. It was our side against their side, and so many people voted so the other side didn't win. And that's why we're losing rights, we're losing financial
Hmm.
support, we are losing allies across this planet because we didn't want the other side to win. Not because somebody was saying something
Yeah,
intelligent.
you weren't voting for, you were voting against.
Exactly. And you weren't voting intelligently.
Hmm.
I have talked too much today. I need to listen.
Okay, well, here's the other thing that I want to say. There's a very, very, very famous phrase that people use from time to time. And especially, Jane was saying an element of it, but she also included the part that I've always said is missing in this famous saying people say. And the saying is words have power, but only the power you, as the audience, grant it. I can be the town crier screaming all kinds of weirdness out and conspiracy theories. But if you say, yeah, that dude's a moron, you've just nullified my entire statement, my entire rant that I'm going on. So the audience has the power of interpretation, of taking it in, of reasoning with it. So don't grant people air to verbalize these things. And this is the part that Jane said we need to learn not to tolerate when you hear these things. So that is the other side of what I've always said. Words have power, but only the power you, as the audience, grant them. If you don't buy into their spiel, they have no power. They don't mean anything. Someone calls you the F word for us gay men. That's because you put the power in that phrase. If you want to take out the power, you're just going to go, yeah, and
Or better yet, say better a faggot than a fascist.
yeah, exactly.
And feel free to
Turn
bleep
it
me if
around
you
on.
need
But
to.
the thing is, we often try to say that we reason and deal with conversation intellectually, but we don't. We do it with emotion, we do it with knee-jerk reaction. And one of the things Schopenhauer really said, that an intelligent person can walk into a room with like a social setting, walk in and not say a word, and yet every single person in that room will make a judgment against this person and eventually ostracize them from the group. It's because that person holds a mirror up to others in the room without saying a word and they don't like what they see in themselves. The lack of effort, the lack of reasoning, the lack of thought, the lack of empathy, all of the things that separate the human race from animals and other creatures around. And who knows, maybe dolphins have it better than we do, and we're just too stupid to know it at this point, because we take the assumption that humans are superior. We don't know. We don't have the final say on that. We don't know where it's all coming from. I mean, hell, if we kill all ourselves off and all that's left are the bees and share, they figured it out and we didn't. So obviously they were smarter and more intelligent than we were, but they weren't out there trying to kill themselves. So I think all of this and what I loved about Schopenhauer and watching this, and I'm going to cite the video down below. Please go check it out. It's from a channel called Apathy, because I literally think this is the biggest sin that we commit. And I think one of the things we need to do is dive into it. Yes, you can have your Netflix. Yes, you can have your funny cat videos that you watch or your dog videos. Yeah, you can have all of that. But don't let it be the governing factor. Don't do doom scrolling without actually doing due diligence on topics that actually do pertain to your pocketbook, to the kitchen table, and to your livelihood. Do the work, people. The only reason you're jumping up and down and screaming because this financial aid has been turned off, we can't get Medicaid to make payments and stuff, is because of our own ignorance and our own lack of reasoning. Because whether you like Kamala or not, she had a plan to talk about and what she wanted to do to make things better for people. But people voted against that because they voted against what she represented. And that was to their own detriment. And now they effed around, and now they're finding out the payout for it. Editing Baz here, just jumping in. There is an additional video I want to show you because it also demonstrates how people will rationalize and reason out why they're giving up on thinking and doing the work that actually comes with applying reason to a situation. Oh, I just don't have the time, or I don't, that kind of thing. So I want to include this little snippet, which is kind of an add-in while I'm editing, just because I think it also helps drive that point. Okay, enjoy.
I don't know if y'all are on farm talk like I am, but did y'all see the video of that young farmer, Skylar, who voted for Trump and now is in danger of losing his family farm because Trump is going to enact the policies that he promised to enact. And Skylar and his family farm are getting screwed in the process. If you haven't seen it, he's made a few videos because he got pretty defensive when folks in the comments on his first video were like, fuck around and find out. Oh, isn't this what you voted for? Did you not research the candidate and his policies before you decided to vote for him? I believe for the third time. This is the third time he's voted for Trump.
Serve any help? I hope you lose your farm. How much you selling it for? All those comments, that's super helpful. You think that you're not helping and you think that it's funny, but you commenting boosts the post and I'm getting more views, therefore it is helping me.
Is it saving your farm?
It's kind of a double-edged sword there. You think you're getting your point across, but in reality, you're actually helping me. But
really,
I wanted to start off by saying I did vote for Donald Trump.
3 times.
Just because I voted for Donald Trump doesn't mean I believe in everything that he stands for. And that everybody has to understand that. Just because you vote one way doesn't mean you agree with everything that that party stands for.
Now, I'm a big proponent of supporting small family farms, supporting local sustainable agriculture. But son, I am struggling to have sympathy for you, a cishet white dude who owns a farm in Missouri, for voting for Donald Trump. You are the demographic that deserves to feel the pinch, deserves to feel the consequences of your actions. The folks who are going to suffer the most, as I have said, the folks who are at risk of losing their lives, their livelihoods, their homes, their well-being, their futures, those folks, by and large, are the folks who did not vote for this regime. But you did. You chose this. And son, I know in this defensive follow-up video, you're like, oh, joke's on you guys because I'm getting mad views on my original video. Cool. Is that somehow stopping the Trump administration from enacting Project 2025? Is that going to save your farm? Are you going to get water to your cattle now? Like, great for you if you're going to make a couple $100 off that video. It doesn't change the regime that you actively supported. that has come to power and is doing all of the things that they promised they would do. Now, you said in the comments of your video that you were too busy to really dig into all of Trump's plans. You didn't have the time to research. But I'm sorry, you are a grown-ass man. You are a whole adult, and it is incumbent upon you to do due diligence and do research before you decide to vote for a candidate. You don't get to play, oh, poor little me, I was ignorant, I didn't know what I was voting for. You don't get to play that game. You are a grown-up. You own a farm, and you couldn't bother to read the section on agriculture in Project 2025? I cover sustainable agriculture for my business, but I don't have a farm, and I had the time to read up on it. I made it a priority. It's wild to me that you as a farmer did not, and now you want to say, this isn't my fault, guys, I just didn't know. No, what you thought is the parts of Trump's platform of Project 2025 that you liked, like deporting brown people, like removing women's access to reproductive health care, like taking away free and reduced lunch for poor kids, restricting Medicaid, food stamps, WIC, which is weird because as a farmer, you should know how many of those programs are linked to agricultural subsidies. I mean, WIC is basically one of the biggest ag subsidies in the country. You honed in on all the things on Trump's platform that were going to get you what you wanted, but you didn't even bother. You were too busy to do the due diligence of reading through the parts of his policies. Project 2025 has been published on the internet for a long time now. You could have gone and said, as a small business owner, as a family farmer, my legacy, my business is super important to me and my family. I should probably read what's in this document about ag. Should maybe investigate before I decide to vote for this man for president. I should probably investigate if his policies might have a negative impact on my farm. But you didn't, and now you're crying on the internet about it. It's sad. It's devastating what is going to happen to family farmers. But it's real weird that y'all can't remember. Your memory is so short. Trump's first administration, farmers all over the country went out of business. Ask any soybean farmer from his first administration what that was like for them. Oh, wait, you can't, because a lot of those small farms are now out of business. There are a whole lot of small farmers crying on the internet. And actually, in his last campaign, there were farmers coming to him and being like, you're going to prioritize family farms, right? And of course, he lied and said yes. But if you look at his track record, who are the only entities that he has an interest in enriching and supporting and making more secure? Giant corporations. He wants to drive family farmers out of business so that you sell your land and your business to big ag. He only cares about big ag, not about you. I mean, he actually only cares about consolidating his power, and he will pander to your pet issues, whatever your conservative religious values are, whatever racism you have. He'll put all of that in there to get your loyalty, but you didn't bother to read the fine print, and it's not even fine print. This was all there out in the open for you to read before the election, but you chose not to. You chose not to, and that is on you, a grown-up. It's like who you vote for has consequences, not just for the immigrants in your community, but also for you and your business. And I would just really encourage you to do a little introspecting. First off, read up on what's going to happen for family farms all over the country, because it's not going to be good. Just like last time he was in office, it was not good. But this is a great time for you and other white dudes around the country to introspect and figure out why it is that you wanted to support Trump more than you wanted to protect your own business. Why is it that you were so easily convinced to vote for him against your own best interest? It's not a time to be defensive. It's a time to say, shit, I done fucked up. This is not good for me and my family. It's not going to be good for my community of farmers. It's not going to be good for the country. I disagree that it's not the fault of the farmers who voted for this. Y'all didn't want socialism. Guess what subsidies for farmers are? Y'all wanted to gut wasteful spending. Y'all didn't want environmental protections. Guess where that grant money comes from for improvements to your farm that help reduce erosion, reduce runoff, improve the environment? You just handed over the keys to the kingdom to Elon Musk to gut the shit out of all of that stuff. And as I said before, this is not a time to be defensive. This is a time to say, we need to save our farms. This is a time to say, we screwed up. We should not have voted for Trump. And we definitely did not vote for Elon Musk. So Skylar, I hope you will take the harsh criticism because people are rightly angry. Your vote contributed to the mess that we're all in now, including you and your farm. But it's not too late for you and any other Trumper farmers to realize that you voted for a man who does not have the best interest of working class Americans at heart. And Skylar, in your latest video, you said we all need to work together to fight corruption. I'm not sure what you meant by that, but I agree. It is time to realize that the working class needs to come together. That right now, an unelected billionaire is gutting the programs that you depend on, that millions and millions of working class folks need to operate their businesses. And he's doing it in order to give himself a giant tax break. So if you want to talk about cutting corruption, so it's not too late to stand up for our democracy, to realize what Elon Musk is doing is illegal, harming the country, harming every working class person, is in violation of the Constitution. So it doesn't matter if you voted for Trump, it's not too late for you to join the party and realize what Musk is doing is unconstitutional, illegal, and you have an obligation to speak up against it. For the sake of your farm, for the sake of our democracy, for the sake of our nation.
So again, really watch the video down below on Schopenhauer. Really dive into some of the things that he's talking about. I think it will enlighten you just enough that you will then perceive all other future conversations and all information being disseminated to you, much like us, that you need to reason with it a bit more. You need to be discerning. You need to the whiff or the chaff from the wheat or whatever. You need to separate what's good and what's bad. Yeah, I know. I'm not a Midwesterner. I don't know. That's your business. But that's what everybody needs to really pay attention to. So I do want to add one little final thing before we go. It's kind of like the Steve Jobs. Oh, one more thing.
Can I offer a new one for you to use?
Uh-huh.
Separate the pearls from the swine.
Oh, okay. There you go. I'll use that going forward. Although I like pigs.
You don't
I
want them
like
wearing
little
pearls.
piggies.
Yeah, but you don't want them wearing the pearls.
Well, that's true. Okay. I will say I have a book that I want to recommend, and I must admit, full disclosure, I am a Mehdi Hassan fangirl. I love that man. I think he has some very intelligent positions to hold on to. I'm reading his book, Win Every Argument. It is a great book in that it gives you the tools to understand how to be a persuasive speaker and a knowledgeable speaker, how to understand who you may debate with and understand the tactics they use. This is a brilliant, brilliant read, and it really has molded how I'm looking at all conversations. So I highly recommend you pick a copy up if you're interested in really understanding the diatribes and the roundtables and all of these things that are going on social media and in the regular mainstream media. This book actually will give you the tools to really start to reason it out and to be able to separate the pearls from the swine. So that's it for this time around. Hopefully you guys found it enlightening and we've given you some mental floss to go run off and think about and expose yourself to, but that's all we're trying to do here. Just bring things to your attention and say, hey, have you thought about this?
So thanks for being with us here today. We encourage you to find one or two more expert videos on this topic and come back to discuss with others. As you do, please remember to separate emotion from fact and entertainment from education. Smash that like symbol and then whack the subscribe button so you get the alerts for new episodes. We'll see you next time under the spotlight.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. Bum's Rush and Melody, dear.